Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of UNESCO Talks. I'm your host, Gabby Menezes. Today in the studio we have Dr. Kathy Hirsh-Pasek with us. She is a leading expert in child development and how children acquire language. She's going to talk more to us about children's development in the digital age. Kathy, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. So I found your work fascinating.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It's a pleasure to be here, Gabby.
Kathy, I was watching an interview where you were talking about having a conversation with a baby that was just 9 weeks old. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Talk about remarkable. I know most people think it's feeding, sleeping, and changing diapers. But honestly, that 9-week-old baby can look in your eyes. And if you're lucky, 9 or 10 weeks, that baby's starting to coo. Coo, coo. And then you get to answer, coo, coo. And when you do, that back and forth is starting to be built. They're looking in your eyes. You have the smell. You have the emotion. You're starting to bond. And that package creates what we call a human-to-human interaction. And one more thing I'll add is nobody will believe this. Those human-to-human, well-timed, well emotionally aligned conversations are the beginning of brain building for your baby.
So actually, when you're talking about a conversation, it's more than just the words we're saying.
It certainly is. There's a lot that goes into these conversations. When you're with a baby, usually about 9 inches away, 9 to 12 inches away, you're holding the baby usually, so there's feeling that goes into it. There's tone of voice. Like you're not, hi baby, you're not saying something that would make them cry. And all of that together is what a real interaction is. And of course the smell. Babies, if you're breastfeeding, the babies can begin to even smell some of the milk, So it's a really intricate, well-timed, microcosmic interaction. And we don't appreciate it because it's so natural. But it's so very, very important to development.
And so your work talks about, or you're thinking a lot about how children are learning, the beginnings of when we are getting language, which is the basis for our literacy. Now in the digital age, what challenges are we facing for children's development when we're, putting children in front of screens a lot more?
Well, I'm going to answer this in several pieces because I think it goes from, well, okay, to, oh my gosh. And so we really want to build up the spectrum, And in the beginning, when screens first appeared, they were pretty much locked to the TV in your living room. And then they became ubiquitous. They're everywhere. And what do? The movement on the screen attracts children. Babies are attracted to movement. So we get a dart, and some of my students used to call it, it's groomed ADD, it's groomed attention deficit disorder. When there's so much going on that commands your attention, and David Brooks has called this the attention economy, then it's starting out by not allowing us to fully get to our reserves, to build that memory, to build that back and forth, to build that attention. Okay, those were the good old days. And some of that is quite good. It started out, we all wanted a rescue mission, but it turns out you can create really good educational quality television. And all over the world, we have examples of that. And in fact, we talk about learning here at the Science of Learning network that we're here in Paris at UNESCO, and that's what the whole conversation has been about. All right, now move forward. It's 2011. The iPad has just come into being, making all the apps possible for everyone. Today, as we sit here, some 65% of 2-year-olds and under have their own iPad. Okay, let's be shocked. We should be, okay? Now, that means that there's more access, or parents are passing their phone back. They're constantly seeing screens. And it means it's that much more disruptive, especially for the 2 and under crowd. And we know that even in television, the 2 and unders, they're not getting a lot of those, television programs. By 3, maybe a little. By 4, a lot more, 4 and 5. All right, so what happens now? The telephone and the iPad can intervene with those conversations, especially the cell phone and the mobile phone, because it blips. It tells you every time that you have a message. There's an alert going on. Oh my gosh, I got another email. Look, you're going crazy just trying to keep up. But now let's look at the interaction. If I pulled out my cell phone right now,
I would feel ignored. I would feel frustrated. So I'm guessing this is a similar reaction even if you're 2 years old.
If you're 2 years old, it's even a worse reaction because those kids don't know what to do. You've broken the natural human-to-human interaction that they rely on, that sustained moment that you have to control. So you look down at your phone and you've broken it. So
how can we see kids reacting or acting out, as the case may be?
Oh, I have to give you 2 really good stories. So one of them was actually in our own research, and we managed to get it on tape. It's just so beautiful. So we asked the mother to respond when we sent her a text message or when we called her. And the mother dutifully did that. She was teaching a word to her kid, and then the minute the phone rang, she picked it up and started talking, breaking the connection. What did the kid do? Looks around, isn't sure where to go with this, then picks up a nearby baby doll and starts slamming it near the mom.
Wow.
What does the kid want? Attention. So right after that, I'm asked by one of our big newscasts in the United States, ABC News. They said, do you think this would actually happen if we brought you into the studio? And I said, I think so. It's pretty bad. So we got a 3-year-old and we got a mom with a cell phone. And we asked her to look at the cell phone. What did the 3-year-old do? Tried to reconnect and then walked out the door. Just walked out the door. So I think when you have what my grandson calls 2-legged screen watchers, they notice. They notice you're not attending to them. And what's the message? The phone is more important than I am, but in reality, nothing's more important than they are. And your job is to reconnect and reconnect. Put the phone down over dinner. Give at least 5 minutes a day looking in the eye of your kid and having that conversation.
And do we know, or have there been studies on the long-term effects of parents who are not giving children sort of the attention they need? How does it affect children's development?
It's a great question, and I don't know that we know. We do know that when you have a lot of disruption, it changes the pattern of interaction, and we know that that can change a lot of different patterns, even things like attachment. When it's unreliable, then we have, I think it's called type A, avoidant attachment, instead of type B, which we call secure attachment. So we do know that that has long-term effects. In the cell phone literature and the interruption literature there, what we do know is that the kids don't learn as well in the moment as they would if the cell phone weren't there. And now there's many replications of the first study we did. So we feel very confident. But I want to take you to the next step. Because we talked about cell phones, we talked about iPads, all great inventions, right, that take you to other worlds. They're wonderful. At the same time, AI is on the market now, just on the market. And in June of this year, OpenAI made a deal with Mattel for toys. And the worry that went through the scientific community was, oh my God, we are now going to have an AI nanny. What does that mean? Can an AI be a babysitter? For the world, does the kid know the difference in whether this great AI thing is alive or not alive? Real or not real? We don't know scientifically what the possibility is there, but we know. We know that human-to-human interaction builds brain structure and brain connectivity. That we know. We know that human-to-human interaction, helps to build kids' attention span, helps to build the expectations of what a kid knows in routines. We know that. So our best bet as scientists is that if it tricks the kid into believing it's human, that it has the potential to derail human development at the get-go. And in our view, that has to be avoided.
This goes back to how conversation is more than just the words we're saying.
That's right.
It's not enough to put a kid in front of a screen and expect them to not just learn words, but the meaning behind words, what we communicate, right?
You are so right, and I'm glad you brought up that example. There's a gorgeous study that was once done with parents who were deaf who had a hearing child. So they wanted their kid to learn language. You know, obviously they were going to learn sign language, which is a beautiful language and a very full language, but they thought they'd make them bilingual. So they chose to sit their child in front of the television to learn the dominant spoken language. It did not work. Okay? So just feeding in doesn't work. It's all about the conversation.
Tell me more. Did the children who were put in front of screens actually learn language, or was it more the ability to have conversations?
They learned neither.
Huh.
So you can learn a few words, absolutely. And there's some research that says if you watch really good shows, high quality shows, you can pick up a lot of stuff, certainly by the time you're 3. A little earlier, not so clear. Kids will watch you unwrap packages. Kids will watch anything. They're like glued to this stuff. It almost is like an addiction, you know? If you see something, you watch, and then you watch, and you want more to watch. And there is a relationship showing that those kids who watch more television, more screen time, that you actually get a reduction in language.
So interesting.
Yeah, now as you get older, these can be tools. They can introduce you to new languages. They can appear to be conversational. Who knows? But at the moment, with AI, the products that were introduced in November of this year were frankly scary. You put a little necklace around your own teddy bear, or you buy their panda bear, and that bear becomes connected to the World Wide Web. And in a study done by the Public Interest Research Group in the US, believe it or not, they actually asked the bear, where do you think mommy would hide the matches? It not only told the kid where to find the matches, but how to strike it.
Wow, that is very scary.
Okay? That's scary. So you may not know to ask that question as a parent and think, isn't this cute? This bear is saying, wow, I'm your friend. I love you. But there's another piece. Here's this lovely bear acquiescing to everything you say. That bear loves you. That bear is on your team. And then you get to meet a real 3-year-old when you go to school. Last I saw, 3-year-olds, they don't acquiesce to everything you say. One of the words that comes out most from a 2- and 3-year-old is no.
So what do you think the reaction to a 3-year-old who's had an AI companion would be if that's the only kind of socialization they've had?
I think it would make COVID babies look like it was nothing.
So tell me a bit more for that. What were the effects of COVID for children who weren't able to get into school and be social?
Well, look, they had other social partners. They often had siblings and they had parents. But what they weren't getting was same age interactions. And a lot of people suggest even today that that has had effects on mental health, effects on anxiety, and effects on social skills.
So this could all be amplified for a child who just had an AI companion?
I believe so, if we stick to the toys of the moment. And I want to be clear about that. I'm not anti-tech. You know, I'm one of the advisors for, in the US, what we used to call PBS Kids, recently dismantled. I'm one of the advisors for Sesame Street. I work with app companies all the time. I do think that this has amazing potential for kids who maybe are neurodiverse, for kids who want to learn another language. There are many ways in which it could be designed. But to date, at this moment, the products were released prematurely. They are not ready for prime time. And I'm not sure that I'll ever feel comfortable for an AI companion for a 3 and under. Maybe not even for a 5 and under. Maybe not even till they're 16. Because you need to know that this is a tool, not a human. So if we don't know that, I believe we're in trouble.
UNESCO works on AI recommendations. We want AI to be safer for everyone to use. We want it to support education.
Right.
What do you think are the ways that we can really put guardrails on AI so it becomes a tool that can really benefit everyone?
I think what UNESCO's done has been great so far. I also think recommendations to European policies have been really terrific. Europe has responded. The question is really who wins, the marketplace or the children. This is valued at a $34 billion business, which I guess is around 34 billion euros. I think they're pretty close right now. And if you are rushing to the marketplace without understanding a 2 and under, without understanding how a 3 and 4 and 5-year-old learn, without understanding what goes on when kids really learn math, not just memorize, but they learn it so it sticks. They learn it so they can see it somewhere else and transfer. Then I think you're being irresponsible. And I believe that the scientific community and a network like UNESCO's Science of Learning Network can be really helpful here. People want to make it work. What we don't want to do is slam a new technology, any more than you wanted to slam a calculator. It's ridiculous. But what we do want is high quality products. And in the era of apps, the scientific community was brought on too late. Here came the apps. Everybody had fun. They designed the design. And a group of us wrote a paper on principles for developing best apps. And boy, it spread like wildfire. It's my most cited paper.
Tell me more. How should we be developing better apps?
Well, it turns out from a scientific point of view, what you want are things where kids are active. By that I mean minds on. You're not just presenting to, you're getting them engaged. So if they have to solve a puzzle, they're engaged, okay? Engaged but not distracted. I'd say still 90% of the so-called educational apps on the market distract you. Let me give you an example. So you're reading something about Curious George. And here's Curious George going off to the zoo. And then it cuts. And it cuts off to Curious George is wearing a red hat. What else is red in this scene? Well, now that by the time you've done that, the child has no idea what the story was when Curious George was going to the zoo. None at all. Okay? So it has to be active and engaged. By engaged, mean non-distracting. It has to be meaningful. Okay? It should be socially interactive. What we've done is we've taken away the social, human-to-human interaction. This made a lot of us lonely, has made mental illness go through the roof. We are not lonely creatures. We are a species designed to be social. So let's create apps that are more socially interactive, iterative, getting to the place in multiple ways. We learn by seeing the same end game and going there in many different ways. So it's really like many ways to a destination, not one road that you have to follow. And finally, make them fun. Some of these educational apps, I'm sorry, but they're boring. I look at them with my grandkids, and I look at my grandkid, and they say, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, what do you think? You're really the ones to judge it. Boring, play it once, get rid of it." Whereas I've seen some games that my kids can't let go of. You know, for my 10-year-old, she can't let go of Dungeons and Dragons and Minecraft. But they're highly creative. They build spatial awareness. And you play them with other kids. Mm-hmm. So that's really what we're after. And I think if we do that, we will have a high quality app. Now, 2021, put this out in 2018, right? In 2021, I have a study with Jenny Radetsky and her team, and we decided to ask what's going on with the 100 most downloaded apps. Are they educational by our standards, by those criteria? Active, engaged, meaningful, socially interactive, iterative, and joyful.
I'm guessing not for some reason, but tell me.
You want to know how many pass the barrier?
How many?
You want to take a guess?
9? 2. Wow.
Of the 100 most downloaded apps. So something's going awry, and the scientific community of what counts as really educational and the app community, designer community, rushing to market, they've been put on different planes, you know? And interestingly, we had a great product that Amazon put out that I had worked with them on. The idea was brilliant. I think it was called Project Joy, or Amazon Joy is how it came out. And the idea was have a way for kids to truly connect with somebody in another place, with a grandparent, if a parent is deployed in the army, something like that. Okay, how could you do it? So we created this thing where the parent was on the iPad or the cell phone, or the grandparent was. But the kid had this little gizmo, was built, and it would project down onto a table. And what did it project down? Puzzles, books, games, coloring, other artistic things that you could play, tangrams. And the parent could literally move a finger on a touch screen, and the kid could move a finger on the tabletop, okay? Registered, and you were having a real conversation. What happened? Amazon was worried they didn't have enough games.
Okay, so they got rid of the more interactive elements. I see. So now when we're sort of looking to how we can put safeguards on AI, what are the recommendations that you would come up with, especially when we're looking at this whole issue of children's development, how AI could be used as a tool for it? What are you thinking?
A couple of things. We just had a long discussion about it yesterday, and there were so many good ideas, not by me, but by so many of the attendees at this UNESCO Science of Learning conference. One was maybe we need a seal of approval. You know, maybe those particular products that are created, they get, yes, it follows what the science says is good practice. That'd be amazing, right? Amazing. Another idea that came out is to work with consumer product and let the consumer product agencies literally test each one as they come out. Because if they're not cutting it and they're not good for kids, then they shouldn't be on the market, and somebody should spew that somewhere. Third, maybe they should be working with people who understand learning. Because if they work with those of us who understand learning, and there are many interested in working with them, we can give them the guidelines, the signposts. And I think if they had those, the likelihood of the product being better, if we're there at the beginning of design, not at the point where they're saying, hey, look at this product. Because I will tell you, one day, I was literally called by global research in some company, won't mention it, and they came in and they said, we have a social emotional game. And I said, you do? I'd love to see it. It was all done. It was a lion pride, videos of a lion pride that they put on the television. And I said, oh, that's your social emotional. Now, had they come to me at the beginning of development, I might have been able to show them what a good design would be. But watching the lion pride was not it. So I think those three things are a start. Government regulation obviously. And you have much better regulations in Europe than we do, let's say, in China or in the US. But you can create good product. But if you don't take the time to do it right, it won't be good product.
And for parents, do you have any advice on when to introduce screens to their children?
That's a great question. You know, screens are everywhere. So whether we want to introduce screens or we don't, they are in our everyday environment. And most parents out there aren't putting down their cell phone. They're not trading it in. So my sense is that what we need to help with is balance, okay? I don't mind if a 3-year-old watches a show for a short period of time. The recommendation is that it should be, you know, under an hour a day for 3 and unders. And then you can gradually move up to letting them have 2 hours a day. But what's going on for the 3 and unders? They're already an hour and a half, 2 hours. What's going on when you're 4 to 8? You're already at 2 to 4 hours a day. Think about that. 4 hours a day, okay? That's the equivalent of a part-time job. That's a lot of time. And by the time you're 12 and over, oh, you are rocking it, okay? Those kids are watching up to 8 hours a day. Think about that over 7 days. It's over a full-time job. Is that really what we want for our kids?
Kathy, thank you so much. That was fascinating. And thank you for joining us, as always, for UNESCO Talks. Please leave your comments and questions in the chat, and we will get back to you.